Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of Finances and Fun, and I'm pumped to have the one and only, the legendary Chris Peris here from Inde Motorsports Ranch. And Chris has a large resume in regards to not only motorsports, but you've got your hands in a little bit of real estate as well, and you're just a badass dude. So I appreciate you taking the time and hopping on camera and just chit-chatting a little bit. The viewers that are checking in from YouTube, really what they like about the show is just a personal connection to what's going on. And we just chit-chat about fun stuff and finances a little bit. And funny enough, for the people that are watching, I first met Chris on my first track day. Here we are at Inde Motorsports Ranch. It's a private racetrack. There's motorsports, of course, moto bikes, street bikes, I guess is the easiest way to put it. There's race cars, and the straight also doubles as a landing strip for people that fly in. So memberships here range from a couple $1,000 to $100,000. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking to do. So
if you need a hangar for your private jet
exactly.
or whatever. So this is the coolest facility. This is also the coolest track in Arizona. There's only 3 in Arizona. This is definitely number 1 by far. People travel from Texas all the way to be here, or other parts of the country further east. So we have the extreme pleasure of having Chris on here. And Chris, I got to ask you, man, you run a racetrack, you run Yamaha Champions Riding School. That's a full-time job in itself. But that's also like your lifetime passion as far as racing motorcycles. So outside of work, like what do you do for fun to like recharge?
It's kind of never stops the motorcycle side of thing. I mean, it really is, it's different because I actually enjoy it, and we have the motorcycle school and all that stuff, but, I hire all of my best friends, and I wouldn't necessarily classify it as work, so there's that aspect of it. When we're not there, my wife and I, we travel a lot. I bought some land actually not far from this racetrack, and we've been building a house over the last 10 years and, just doing lots of little things like that. And, it's we don't have a ton of downtime in between all the different events and businesses and things that we have going on. But, when we do, if we can travel, that's kind of that thing we like doing.
Well, you've been traveling a lot for a long time. Personally, I haven't been to Canada besides Whistler for a downhill mountain biking trip over at Whistler. I haven't been to Europe. So with all your well-traveled verses, where do you like to go to? Where's the coolest place you've been?
Man, that's hard. The, anywhere that's kind of different from North America, I think is just, it really makes the experience. Like you go to Europe and there's all the culture and the history. You go to, Asia, Thailand was amazing. We went there for our honeymoon for a month and,
no shit.
Yeah. So it was like, everywhere is just so different, where just the culture, the people, the history, like I guess East Coast US, there's a little bit of history. You get some stuff, but I mean, it's like,
bit.
Yeah, blow your mind. Cool. All these other places. So yeah, anytime we kind of get out of the country, that's normally our game plan.
So my fiance and I have our plans for our honeymoon to go to Indonesia and then Thailand.
Nice.
So you went there for a full month. You didn't get tired of the hawker market and all that stuff?
No, I mean, we were in a different city, every 2 or 3 days, and there's so much to see. There's so much to do. The people are awesome. And it is so inexpensive, like this was 12 years ago or something like that. But I mean, you'll stay at like the nicest resort you've ever been at in your life, and it was like $30 a day, So,
oh man,
yeah, when you take the money side out of the travel, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. Like that's kind of the upside from like going to Europe and things like that, where it's just like everything is like, oh, it costs that much,
Oh shit! How many pounds?
yeah. So but yeah, no, you'll dig it. It is unbelievable.
Well, we even had a track day here where we pitted next to someone and he flew in from Indonesia.
Yep.
And he just hits up a couple of tracks on his Ducati and then he just flies back home because he has commercial real estate, funny enough, in Texas.
Yep.
And he's just riding that cash flow and he gets to live in Indonesia. And yeah, I've heard great things about the resorts, the food. You're spending, $30 a day for this gorgeous house, mansion, we should call it. So kicking it over to like the finances side of things, you obviously run Yamaha Champion Riding School, which is world renowned, but huge in the States. And there's a couple of locations that you go to. It's not just in Arizona.
Yeah, no, we're in about 18 states. So
Damn.
we kind of bounce around. Pretty much it's the same crews. We have an East Coast and a West Coast shop, and then, travel to all the nearby states, kind of north and south and east and west from our home bases. So that keeps us pretty busy. We do like 33 events, so kind of one every other week kind of thing throughout the year. So that keeps us pretty busy on that front. And then, I'll run the track days and things out at Inde Motorsports Ranch. And then, wherever we can, we do a bunch of real estate stuff as well. So, fill the schedule.
Generational wealth aspect there. Real estate hasn't gone down in the States, but you've also seen Canadian real estate and the contrast between 20% down always compared to 3% down as a first-time home buyer. Like, you can get $400,000 with 3% down. What?
Yeah. I mean, it used to be a little bit more lax back. Like, the nice thing was in Canada, you could actually assume mortgages. So, I was, kind of how I got into real estate a little bit was, I was racing. So you'd make, good chunks of money here and there. You have good weekends, all that stuff. And, but I was like 18 years old, so it's like, cool, I've got a bunch of money, but I don't really have like a provable income. So, I have my dad, he just qualifies for a mortgage. You assume it the day after you close, and then you can kind of take over and kind of do that. So I kind of got into the real estate side through the motorcycle stuff, because it was like your busy season was race season, which is like, spring through fall. But then all winter you had time off. So, I'd buy a house, I'd renovate it, flip it, and rent it out to my buddies. And, we had a bunch of different kind of real estate deals and bought real estate in a lot of places because of it too. I had a place in Nicaragua and
no way,
Vegas and Canada. And so it's, it kind of all blended together a little bit from that aspect.
There's a racetrack in Nicaragua?
No.
Okay.
No, it was an awesome place to go spend the winter.
Yeah.
So it was we went there a couple times and liked it, and it was super inexpensive. So it was just, bought a beach house for,
$10,000.
Yeah. I mean, more than that, but I mean, it compared to what you could get up here, it was like insane. So,
oh yeah. We just got back actually from a week-long mission trip in Nicaragua, and that was the first time I'd been there. Built a couple of houses, some latrines, glorified porta potties.
Yeah.
But you see just the poverty, unfortunately, and how much impact you can have just by putting a smile on your face and meeting a random stranger that you barely can speak broken Spanglish with, and then you make a new friend, and you're like, this place is cool. Like, just because they don't have money doesn't mean they're not rich internally.
No, I mean, I think the family side of that, I mean, everyone is very close knit, and as sketchy as those places can be, I mean, most of the time, the people were awesome. You could find yourself in a bad spot in any city in the U.S. as well, but the sense of community and stuff was always really kind of cool. They didn't have much, but they were willing to help you out and do anything, like it was kind of a cool just shift in mentality, Big time. I showed my motorcycle. I showed them dragging me a little bit, and they were like, "That's you? Oh my God, what? How fast were you going?" And it's like, dude, like this for me is a fun weekend, but for you, it's something you've never seen before. Yeah. But it's cool to show them like the cultural differences as well and learn from them, because our family lifestyle here in the States are drastically different, I would say. Yeah. So you started racing when you were 15? I mean, I started riding when I was like 7. I grew up just kind of dirt biking. My dad had some property and all that. So started that way. And then I started racing kind of on little bikes at like 12.
Dang. And so you took the skills from dirt bikes and were like, okay, this can coordinate over to street bikes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. For the most part, actually, me and my dad started racing together at the same time as something to do. So he was 40 and I was 12. And we're just like, let's try this motorcycle thing. He always had bikes and was very into it growing up. And, we were always kind of had motorcycles around, and it was part of, all of my uncle rode, and, so we all just started racing together as something to kind of do, and ended up kind of turning into a career. So
yeah, it accidentally turned into a career. Yeah. Obviously there were some tough races. There were you had to politic a little bit, I'm sure, to get with the right team or get your face out there so that people knew who you were to get picked up. You were riding professional for Suzuki.
Yeah. Suzuki, Honda, BMW, those were kind of the major ones throughout.
Are you allowed to say which bike is your favorite?
Everything Yamaha.
Subtle plug.
Yeah.
Contractually, I'm sure you got to say that. So you went through a wide career choice with, I mean, everyone wants to race. Like, that's the coolest thing. You turn on the TV and you're like, that guy gets paid to have fun. Like, that's such a cool career path. Was that just happenstance, or what work ethic did you have to put in order to get to that step? Because that's like top 2%.
Yeah, it's like anything else. I mean, it seems all fun and glory and all that, but it's very competitive. It's very hard to get into, and it's insanely expensive to get into, so that, you make one little mistake, crash a bike, there goes 20 grand, so it's, to be able to kind of make something work in that field is very difficult to kind of get into and get to a point where you can actually, make money doing it. And, we're lucky enough to be able to do that for a bunch of years. And it was, I mean, there's not much like it, but getting to that point to where you can make money, to you can get on the team, it's very difficult. And it's an interesting sport, like you play football, you play whatever sport you play, there's a lot of team aspect that goes into it. You have your trainers, you have your the coaches, it's regimented, there's a schedule. This is like, if this is all on you, if you don't show up and do well on Sunday, go home. You're not getting a check. You're not coming back. So, how hard you worked was really based on yourself, and I think that was a kind of interesting life lesson, where it was like, oh, cool, I can just go hang with my buddies and do this. And then you have a bad weekend. It's like, no, you know what? I actually have to,
there goes the check I was expecting.
Yeah. And it was kind of, just a different sport, but I think it had a lot kind of correlating into, starting a business and doing all these other things, because, it all lands on you when you're kind of starting up a new project, so it was kind of, had a little bit of crossover, I think.
So how did you fund that? It turned into a hobby, it turned into a career, it turned into a passion, and it's still a career and a passion for you now. And everyone at the pits can tell that you are passionate about not only pouring into others, but giving people a fun experience. No matter what level of skill they're at, people are always like, dude, Chris is the best. So what funded that before you got to pro? Was real estate the vehicle?
No, I mean, I was... Luckily, my dad owned a big business up in Canada, owned a printing company. And so that was kind of the write-off for getting things going. It was advertising. And but it started really small, bike and a van and travel around and do well. And by the time I was 16, I got picked up for a factory ride in Canada for Honda Canada. And, at that point was able to, get kind of come down towards the States, which was, at the time, maybe not as the biggest crowd for racing, but definitely it's the largest motorcycle industry, so you could make the most money here. So it was, luckily being close to it, was able to get into it from that front, luckily on a small scale in Canada, and kind of work my way back down here. And, there used to be a lot of, back and forth between manufacturers, like, hey, we've got a younger kid here, and, try to put him on a bike down there. And, so it was, once you were kind of in that world, it was, you had a couple connections that would try to get you, push towards getting another ride or getting a weekend somewhere or going overseas. Like, there was a lot of just networking. And
your first networking, that's the key word that I'm taking away from that. You always got to be networking.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what the real estate side, the motorcycle schools, the track days, it's networking with people that you have a similar interest in. And if you're going to go buy a house with someone, do you want to talk about motorcycles driving in the car for 8 hours, or, so it really is, it all kind of blends together, and it's relationships, just being able to, not burn bridges when things go poorly, be able to actually, have some common sense in certain areas, and, admit when you're wrong and all those things, because that really does keep you in all these different arenas for so much longer.
Know, like, and trust, right? You got to know, like, and trust someone before you do business with them. And then being proactive as the professional to communicate effectively and say, okay, here's what you should expect during this process. There's, especially buying a house, there's the ups, there's the downs, there's the emotional roller coaster of, we loved that house, why didn't we get it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're not competitive. They came in all cash. They closed in 5 days. We got 30. So just being able to put the best foot forward and coach them, get it
Nice.
through the process. So your first podium was on a 125. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Actually, we took when I went on from mini bikes to 125s, like the smallest of the full size 125 two strokes at the time.
Dang, rips.
Yeah. Well, and they went good for what they were, but I went to a school in Canada for the first, you had to get your race license and do all that.
Yamaha Champ School, right?
No, but we turned into that. But so I had to take a class for the very first time going, and you got your like provisional license. You had to grid up at the back of like 80 bikes.
Dang.
And, my first race, I beat everybody except for the guy teaching the school who started 20 rows up, So at that point, it was kind of my dad was like, you might have a knack for this, So
you were like, I'm a badass.
Yeah. So we kind of started taking it a little bit more serious. I mean, it was always just kind of when you're 14 or whatever, it's all fun. You don't really care. You're riding a motorcycle. It's like, this is the best.
Oh yeah.
All the other things that came from it was just out of the joy of liking it. And it eventually kind of grew into something, but yeah, kind of, started off with a bit of a bang. But as you move up, it gets a lot harder. So then the amount of work you had to put in was like, okay, maybe this is a little bit more like a job,
Yeah, you wake up not wanting to do that training, and they're like, nope, go run 10 miles.
Yeah.
What was that training regimen like to prepare you? Because you also trickled into 2006, 7, 8. That's when you hit podium, and you were racing AMA and Moto 1, was it?
I was doing World Supersport probably around then. The team was called Moto 1. A Yamaha team out of Belgium. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of just kept growing into different places. I mean, anytime, it's like anything else, the more you rode, the better you did. The more you would learn from, this crew, this team, you would take it back somewhere else. So it was any weekend we could get out and ride, we would get out and ride. So it was, started kind of the US. In the off season, try to go to New Zealand or Australia or wherever you could kind of ride throughout the winter. And, it was just about, at that point was just trying to get better with the idea of like, hey, one day I want to do this as a full-time career. And, unfortunately as you start getting kind of moving up through the ranks and starting getting things working out, then they had the big financial crisis of 2008.
Oh yeah.
And that was really kind of the nail in the coffin for the motorsports world. They were doing so bad through that whole downturn. And that kind of really killed American road racing for the most part. It's starting to come back now. But it took a lot of years. So
16 years later, here we are.
Well, yeah. And that's why I kind of got into doing the school part, and it was just like, I loved being on motorcycles. I loved racing. And at first we started a school just as like, this will fund our racing. This is all we want, and, I've worked with, my partner now, but he was my riding coach since I was like 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
And we ended up, partnering and starting this, and he'd been doing it, running another school for a lot of years. And, it kind of grew into something just kind of sheerly out of the passion of trying to go racing,
Just doing more and more and more. And then next thing you know, you're 5 steps ahead of where you were at. And you're like, damn, how'd we get here?
Yeah, no, the school thing kind of took off, and COVID was probably the best thing to happen to motorcycles, really. I mean, it was anything. You want to get outside, you want people getting RVs, people, whatever it was, but the motorcycle industry just took off the last 3 years. And that's been awesome for us. Just so many, it brought a new type of rider into it. Like it always seemed to be the extreme sport kind of people, like, bro, here's a Red Bull, I'm gonna do a backflip kind of thing.
The Kyle's slamming monsters.
Yeah, exactly. And then now it was like, hey, I'm an accountant. I've always wanted a motorcycle. Hey, from all walks of earth. And they're like, if I'm going to do something that's relatively high risk that I can get killed, I better figure out how to do it, So yeah. And it was this whole shift in the industry that it was just bringing a different group of people into motorsports. And, again, you'd is making more connections with people doing similar things. A lot of real estate people, a lot of finance people. And it led to just all different kinds of walks of life coming into it.
I love that. And obviously you're seeing a lot of riding styles. You're coaching a lot of people. I mean, what do you say, 48 weeks out of the year you're coaching, or the school is coaching?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we do a lot of other manufacturer stuff as well. So we work with a lot of like test riders and engineers for other motorcycle companies, because
that's cool.
They're it's if they're designing a motorcycle and one guy rides it and says it's awesome and one guy says this thing sucks, it doesn't help them. So a lot of the manufacturers will bring people out to our school to go, hey, you all have to speak the same language. We're all on a team. If one person's not pulling the rate, riding different, doing something different, it kind of puts the whole project kind of
at a standstill. Yeah, they don't know what direction to design or engineer around.
Yeah. So it keeps us pretty busy now.
So I don't know if you've read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Have you read that?
No.
So he committed his life to studying successful people, and like Charles Schwab, Eisenhower, the steel industry, JP Morgan, like he studied these people at the infant level all the way through their life and studied their success. And one of the things that they found was, before you achieve true great success, you always experience a deep failure. So unfortunately, that's where people grow the most, is they hit a wall or they don't feel accomplished, and then they skyrocket because that's the limiting factor. So what failures have you ran into in order to accomplish such successes?
Unfortunately, they're endless, right? Like, I mean, that was kind of always the cool thing about racing, was it was like, your best races were always after your worst ones. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, you have that feeling of like, God, I can't believe I just got beat by that guy, or whatever it was, and, that was what kind of like motivated you and fired you up. And, even starting the school, I mean, the first couple of years were tough. I mean, it was, you're knocking on doors like, hey bro, you want to come? We'll give you the sweet deal. Otherwise we're going to go broke,
Please.
Yeah. It's like, you're always just like one event from going broke for the first couple of years, So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that. And I mean, even just the downturn of the economy in 2008, it was just like, there was so much money in the racing world that you were able to do all these different things. You could buy properties, you could do this thing just because like the money was flowing everywhere. And then all of a sudden that stopped. And then it was like, everyone's like, but that should go on forever. What do we do now? Like,
now what?
We don't really have a lot of other real life skills quite, everyone's been doing this since they're young and, not going to college. We were traveling the world racing motorcycles and doing, all the things we would want to do. But, it was like, there was that hard moment of like, now what, and a lot of, it's, even if you look now, it's like a lot of some of the best riders maybe in the country were just sitting at home, just like didn't really have maybe enough other skills. Maybe they'd made enough money racing. But, it was like, for a lot of people, it was a tough time in that whole field. And it was for everybody in every industry, really. But yeah, it was, when you don't expect it, and then it's like, well, now we're starting from square one. You've got, at that point, it was like I had properties and all these things. It's like, oh, when you don't have big paychecks come in, and how do you afford that? So
I got to pay all these mortgages? What?
Yeah. So it was, I mean, there's been a lot of those types of events where it was just like, man, you're never going to pull out of this. You got to put your head down and hustle to try to make this one little thing work. And, eventually two little things work, and, it does grow from there. But yeah, I think that's a big part of really anybody's success, is you've got to have the downs, it's really what makes the ups so good,
Worth it too. So you coach a lot of brand new riders and experienced riders. Champ School has a lot of different categories, and they walk you through a lot of the technicalities of, everyone wants to go fast. Great. Here's how you do it, piece by piece and second by second. A lot of my friends, they ride motorcycles. They see that I go to the track, and I just can't stop talking about it because it's just so much fun. What are some of the common mistakes that you see people come in from riding just on the road that is the first thing to address?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those, you don't know what you don't know. I think the motorcycling, unfortunately, is either not necessarily taught correctly at the beginning levels. They teach what's relatively simple for someone to get going in a parking lot. And then from there, there's not really a lot of secondary training. So people, go spend 15 minutes at a DMV rolling through a little cone at 15 miles an hour. And then here you could buy a 200 horsepower, 200 mile an hour motorcycle, and you've never even gotten into second gear, So from that point, a lot of it becomes self-taught. And that's where, people come into it with just different concepts and different ideas where, people go to YouTube, they go to, there's a million opinions and ways of, that some guy thought of some fancy way of saying something and tries to build an idea out of it. And it's like, well, our whole focus at the Champ School was like, I don't care what your idea is or this idea or my idea. What are the best riders in the world doing? Who's winning these championships? What is their skill set? How do they go to the brake lever? How do they move their body? What kinds of things are they looking for? And that's really what we gear our curriculum to. So you get these new riders that, have been told like, oh, using the brakes, those make you go slow. And it's like the reality is you get out onto the racetrack, the rider that's going quickest is the brakes on for, more typically than a lot of the other riders. So yeah, it's some of the things are just so backwards, but it's people get these ideas and, it's finding that credible source, which, we've tried to establish ourselves as that.
Definitely so. And you guys have a YouTube course or a university online, so people can still plug in even if they can't come down to Wilcox, Arizona, or go to any of your other locations to learn the true way to do it. So I see your guys' marketing and scaling to, during the COVID era, expand to get to those people that can't make the trip.
Yeah, and it's relatively expensive to come to the school. I mean, you get a racetrack like this, and we run relatively small numbers, so obviously the price has to be kind of
worth it.
Yeah, well, but it is on the higher side for a lot of people. So, during the COVID time, we're kind of like, a lot of these tracks, they wouldn't let us rent the track because of the states they were in, or, so we had to kind of really shift, and we're like, well, we got to try to get the masses getting the right message. And that was that Champ U is what we kind of called it. But that shift to being able to really get in with new riders and get people from the very beginning. And, it's so much harder to unlearn bad habits than it is to get it the right way. And that was kind of like, how could we deliver a product for $50 that someone could really learn, the right technique from day one to get a better understanding to, hopefully love this sport their whole life.
Well, I'm definitely an advocate of loving it for your whole life. I come out here and see people that are 70, 80 years old riding, and they just love it. And I aspire to be that age and still love it. So with a couple of minutes left, I want to ask a little bit more on the real estate side, because you are an investor. You've had many properties. You've gone through the creative financing route with the tools available by assuming a mortgage. Not a lot of people realize that real estate kind of is all negotiable. What would you say? Well, I'm curious, do you have a portfolio now? And what was your favorite deal?
Man. You kind of scaled back a little bit on the portfolio. We were really trying to hustle. We just actually sold our house that we're in, took advantage of the market, and finally mortgage free, which has been
Congrats.
Pretty nice. So got that going, and now we're starting to maybe look at doing some Airbnbs and a couple different things now that we've got kind of that, it's nice to have a home base that you're not kind of stressing on. So yeah, we're starting to get more into that. Favorite deal, as far as just with consumers there, it's hard to have a deal where like everyone's so excited, like when they get the house, their dream house, I'll do a lot of things for members out in this area that are like, man, I can't believe what you can get here coming from California to be in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. And just like, man, I want to have a ranch. I want to do these things. And, you get to see kind of that creative spark that everybody gets like, wow, I can actually build something and do something. So I think that part is always been probably the coolest. I don't know if it's necessarily a single deal where it was like, oh, that one was just epic, but
yeah,
everybody is always just so enthusiastic. And when you get to help them, get what they're looking for and think about, the process maybe, or seeing it, hey, what if we did this? They're like, oh, wow, that would be freaking awesome, So yeah, like I think those moments are kind of what make it in that world for me.
Helping the client get there and seeing the spark on their side.
Yeah, I mean it's owning a home or your second home or third home, whatever it is. I mean it's it is something that everyone's passionate about. It's a special moment for most people, right? So it's hard for everybody to not be kind of that all-in mentality. Just, it may be your millionth deal, but it's their first. It's the one that really counts for them, right, at that time. So it's kind of an interesting deal.
So you're obviously a licensed realtor. What markets do you serve so that if anyone that watches this can be like, cool, now I know a guy, because you're my Tucson guy. So do you not only do Tucson, where all can people get your assistance with finding or selling a house? Yeah,
mostly Tucson is kind of the area that I would typically specialize in, and then Cochise County as well, which is kind of out where this racetrack is. We do a lot of just rural properties, people that are interested in typically getting a little bit more land. Big garages is typically, through the members here, it's like, wow, I want a place I could put a 20,000 square foot garage on, like these are the deals I like. So we'll do a lot of kind of Cochise County, Pima County kind of.
Perfect. So we're about to wrap up the show. I'm going to blindside you with a stupid question. Would you rather have a finger-sized nipple or nipple-sized fingers?
Finger-sized nipple.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. It just seems like the more normal of options.
You can fold them down and tape them up.
You flip people off, you never know.
I'm sorry for an embarrassing question there, but it definitely sings a memory hook. My fiance used that at a couple of conferences, and now these millionaire real estate investors are like, oh, you're that one.
Yeah.
Just by a silly little question. But thank you guys for tuning in from YouTube. We're excited to be here and deliver another podcast episode of Finances and Fun to you guys. And a big gratitude. Thank you for being on the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find out more about you if they need to get in touch with you for buying or selling down here in Cochise County or Tucson?
Yeah, just chrisperis.com or Yamaha Champions Riding School.
And please, if you ride motorcycles, please ride safely. Learn how to ride safely. We got to make sure that if you enjoy it, that you can stick around and continue to enjoy it. So thank you, Chris. Thank you for Yamaha Champ School. Thank you for helping out our mutual clients that we've done business with together. And we'll see you next month on the next episode of Finances and Fun. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Finances and Fun podcast. Please like and subscribe to get new episodes as they're released. We love engaging with our audience, so please leave us a comment below with any feedback or questions you have. Write to the show by sending an email to talktoaproadvisor@gmail.com. You can find the video version of the show on YouTube at the Finances and Fun YouTube channel. Check out clips of the show on our Instagram and YouTube. Just search Finances and Fun. This has been a T-Door production.